finally, on this issue of the sexual assault and domestic violence, this is an issue I've been focused on literally for 10 years since I was Attorney General in 2009 and 2010. We had a big statewide initiative that was, increased penalties for perpetrators, public service announcements, more legal services for victims and survivors, and getting the state really engaged and to recognize this problem, and then longer term working to change the culture, right, which is what really needs to happen. So I had a bill last year that was all about increasing pro bono domestic services for victims, which is what we did here when I was Attorney General. That passed, so that's signed into law. We're going to start implementing it this year. Like I mentioned in my speech, the trigger on this would be if you are the victim of a crime, okay? So a rape, stalking, sexual assault. And the perpetrator who is charged, let's say he's charged, he's indicted. That person gets a lawyer. They get a lawyer under the Sixth Amendment. My legislation that we're finalizing would trigger then to say, okay, wait, what about the victim? How come she doesn't get a lawyer? And get a lawyer for the victim. Now the benefit of that is A, she has legal counsel, whether she can afford it or not, just like the perpetrator or alleged perpetrator. B, as I mentioned, and we can get you the studies, there are very powerful studies that show that one of the best ways to help survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault break out of the cycle is to get a lawyer, because then they're empowered to say get a protective order, or to boot the guy out of the house, or to get custody of the kids. And so we did that when I was Attorney General. We held these pro bono legal summits all over the state. We did a summit in Juneau to get people to step up and do that kind of work. We had over 100 attorneys in 2 years do the volunteer work, so that's like amounts to tens of thousands of free legal service hours. But what we're doing is we'll take this a step further. We're finalizing the legislation to, essentially give them it wouldn't be a constitutional right like the defendant has. It would be like a statutory right. And how you would fund that could be partially through federal grants. States would have to step up. You do a lot more on pro bono, so it would be a combination of all that. But again, it would be triggered by an indictment of